refuse to adopt a similar land acknowledgement because too many town officials and residents are apparently concerned that a simple land acknowledgement could lead to reparations and loss of their real estate holdings.
That's right.
We acknowledge that we are meeting on the unceded ancestral homeland of indigenous peoples, whose enduring presence we humbly recognize. We honor the Wampanoag people as the original stewards and the Herring Pond Wampanoag as the surviving tribe indigenous to these lands. In our commitment to lifelong learning, we acknowledge historical injustices to the native people of this land and vow to educate ourselves, our community, and our students on the First Peoples and the hardships they endured. We offer this as a small but essential step towards building a culture of truth and accountability. Now I'm going to call up our first speaker, Keisha James, from the Wampanoag tribe of Garrett-Aquina, the co-lead of United American Indians in New England.
Can you bring the stand up closer to us? If possible?
Good afternoon, sisters, brothers, and siblings. Once again on so-called Thanksgiving, United American Indians of New England and our supporters are gathered on this hill to observe a national day of mourning for the indigenous people murdered by settler colonialism and imperialism worldwide. Today marks the 55th time we have gathered here to mourn our ancestors, tear down settler mythologies, and speak truth to power. National Day of Mourning came into existence in 1970 when my grandfather, an Aquina-Wampanoag man named Wamsutta Frank James, was invited by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to speak at a banquet celebrating the 350th anniversary of the arrival of the Pilgrims. The organizers of the banquet no doubt imagined that Wamsutta would sing the praises of the American settler colonial project and thank the Pilgrims for bringing civilization to these shores. However, the speech that Wamsutta wrote, which was based on historical fact rather than the sham version of history perpetuated in the Thanksgiving myth, was a far cry from complimentary. In his speech, Wamsutta not only named atrocities committed by the Pilgrims, but also reflected upon the fate of the Wampanoag at the hands of the settler invaders. Wamsutta's speech contained a powerful message of Native American pride. "Our spirit refuses to die," wrote Wamsutta. "Yesterday we walked the woodland paths and sandy trails. Today we must walk the macadam highways and roads. We are uniting. We stand tall and proud, and before too many moons pass, we'll right the wrongs we have allowed to happen to us." When state officials saw an advance copy of Wamsutta's speech, they refused to allow him to deliver it, saying that the speech was too inflammatory. They told him he could speak only if he were willing to offer false praise of the Pilgrims. The organizers even offered to write a speech for him, one which would better fit with their settler narrative. But Wamsutta refused to have words put into his mouth. His suppressed speech was printed in newspapers across the country, and he and other local Native activists began to plan a protest. The flyer for this protest, which was circulated nationwide, read, "What do we have to be thankful for? The United American Indians of New England have declared Thanksgiving Day to be a national day of mourning for Native Americans." On so-called Thanksgiving Day, 1970, Wamsutta and members of at least 25 tribes as well as a handful of non-native allies, gathered here on this hill and observed the first National Day of Mourning. Attendees spoke about the Pilgrim invasion and conditions in Indian country, marched around Plymouth, boarded Mayflower II, and even buried Plymouth Rock in sand. One leader of the American Indian movement would later say of the first National Day of Mourning that it is, quote, a day American Indians won't soon forget. We went to Plymouth for a purpose, to mourn since the landing of the Pilgrims, the repression of the American Indian, and to indict the hypocrisy of a system which glorifies that repression. So, why do so many Native people object to the Thanksgiving myth? According to this myth, the Pilgrims, seeking religious freedom, landed on Plymouth Rock. The Indians welcomed them with open arms and then conveniently faded into the background, and everyone lived happily ever after, the end. Here is the truth. First, the Pilgrims are glorified and mythologized because the circumstances of the first permanent English colony in North America, Jamestown, were too ugly to hold up as an effective national myth. Pilgrims and Indians are a much more marketable story than settler cannibalism. Second, the Pilgrims came here as part of a commercial venture. They didn't need religious freedom, they already had that back in the Netherlands. The Mayflower Compact was merely a group of white men who wanted to ensure they would get a return on their investment. Third, when the Pilgrims arrived, on outer Cape Cod, by the way, not on the pebble down the hill, one of the first things they did was rob Wampanoag graves at Corn Hill and steal as much of their winter provisions of corn and beans as they were able to carry. Fourth, some Wampanoag ancestors did greet the Pilgrims and save them from starvation. And what did we, the indigenous people of this continent, get in return for this kindness? Genocide, the theft of our lands, the destruction of our traditional ways of life, slavery, starvation, and never-ending oppression. Fifth, the first official Thanksgiving did not take place in 1621 when the Pilgrims had a harvest time meal provided largely by the Wampanoag. Instead, the first Thanksgiving was declared in 1637 by Governor Winthrop of the Massachusetts Bay Colony to celebrate the massacre of over 700 Pequot men, women, and children on the banks of the Mystic River in Connecticut. Subsequent slaughters of indigenous people would be celebrated by a day of Thanksgiving, and yet we are labeled as savages in the history books. So why does any of this matter? After all, 1620 was a long time ago, and the Pilgrim forefathers had been rotting in their graves for centuries. It is simple. The past influences the present. In her book, Lose Your Mother, A Journey Along the Atlantic Slave Route, Sadia V. Hartman wrote, quote, I, too, live in the time of slavery, by which I mean I am living in the future created by it. So, too, are we living in the time of the Pilgrims. Because the settler project created by the Pilgrims did not end with the Pilgrims. The evils that the Pilgrims brought to these shores, racism, slavery, the class system, jails, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, these evils continue to affect the peoples of Turtle Island and beyond. For, as Plymouth loves to remind us, this is America's hometown. The United States was born here, and its myriad crimes therefore rest on the shoulders of the Pilgrim forefathers. And indeed, all settler projects worldwide, past and present, are indebted to the Pilgrims. These settler colonial projects have terrorized indigenous peoples for centuries. From the colonial period to the 21st century, this has entailed torture, massacres, family separations, systemic military occupations, and the forced removals of indigenous peoples from their ancestral homelands. Let us not forget that this country was founded on the ideology of white supremacy, the widespread practice of African slavery, and a policy of genocide and land theft. Let us not forget that under the pipelines, skyscrapers, mines, and the oil rigs lie the interred bones, sacred objects, and villages of our native ancestors. Let us not forget that this is a country that continues to glorify murderers such as Christopher Columbus, that worships slave-owning presidents such as Washington and Jefferson, and even carves their faces into the sacred Black Hills of the Lakota. And until this country, this settler colonial project, and all settler colonial projects are dismantled, we will continue to live in the time of the Pilgrims. So the Pilgrims are not ancient history, and we cannot allow their crimes to be sanitized and forgotten. And that is why, year after year, we have gathered on this hill to tear down the Thanksgiving mythology. When people perpetuate the Thanksgiving mythology, they are not only erasing the Pilgrims' legacy of settler colonialism and genocide, but also celebrating it. But Native people did not simply fade into the background, as the Thanksgiving myth said. We have survived and flourished. We have persevered. The very fact that you are here is proof that we did not vanish. Our very presence frees this land from the lies of the history books and the myth makers. We will remember and honor all of our ancestors in the struggle who went before us. We will speak truth to power, as we had been doing since the first National Day of Mourning in 1970. The first National Day of Mourning in 1970 was a powerful demonstration of Native unity, and it has continued for all these years as a powerful demonstration of the unity of all people who speak truth to power. Many of the conditions that prevailed in Indian country in 1970 still prevail today. In 1970, our average life expectancy was just 44 years. Today, we continue to have the lowest life expectancy of any group in the U.S., and the death rate for Native women has increased 20% over the past 15 years. In 1970, our suicide and infant mortality rates were the highest in the country. This has not changed. All of us are struggling under the oppression of a capitalist system which forces people to make a bitter choice between heating and eating. And we will continue to gather on this hill until we are free from this oppressive system, until corporations and the U.S. military stop polluting the earth, until we dismantle the brutal apparatus of mass incarceration. We will not stop until the oppression of our LGBTQ and Two-Spirit siblings is a thing of the past, until unhoused people have homes, until there are no more murdered and missing Indigenous women and other relatives, until human beings are no longer deported or locked in cages at the U.S. border, despite the fact that no one is illegal on stolen land. Until no person goes hungry or is left to die because they have little or no access to quality health care, until insulin is free, until union busting is a thing of the past. We will not stop until the U.S. ends its colonial occupations of Puerto Rico and the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii. Until the U.S. stops its warmongering worldwide. Until the U.S. ends its interventions in Haiti and repays the billions it stole from the Haitian people. Until the U.S. pays reparations to Black Americans. Until land back for Native nations. Until free Palestine. Until then, the struggle will continue. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, in the spirit of Metacom, in the spirit of Geronimo, above all, to all people who fight and struggle for real justice, we are not vanishing, we are not conquered, we are as strong as ever.
Thank you. Okay, so just a few welcome remarks before we continue with the program. First of all, we wanted to do a roll call of all of our people that came on buses from Portland, Maine, from Western Mass, from Jamaica Plain, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn. Thank you, and welcome others who have traveled from a long distance, including the Red Nation, coming to us from New Mexico and Washington State. We want to thank everyone for being here on such a rainy day. And you know, we need, here in Massachusetts where we have a drought, we need and we welcome the rain. And for all of our indigenous peoples, when we say water is life, we welcome the rain, we welcome the waters. But it's a lot better for us to be out here in the rain for a few hours than what has taken place over the past few days in Gaza, where refugees living in tents have suffered the flooding that has exacerbated the humanitarian crisis. It's better for us to be here and to be able to go home. For all of our indigenous peoples, we say that we have a right to return back to our homelands. And we demand an end to occupation. Also, just want to give a quick word about our elders in our community. We are still living in a pandemic. COVID-19, many other diseases our community has faced over the last year. But our elders are still with us here today. Our community continues. And so of course we lift up all of our prayers. But we want to thank those elders, especially Matoin, who's with us here today. Despite it all, it's better for us to be standing here in rain. But so many of us have done so much just to be here today, and we want to thank you. So, just briefly, going to give the order of speakers. First, we're going to have Juan Gonzalez from the Council of Maya Elders. Secondly, and for the second time at National Day of Mourning, we will have a Palestinian speaker. We have Leah Kayali from the Palestinian Youth Movement. Then on our agenda, we have Chalia Naru giving the introduction for the Leonard Peltier statement, which has always been given to us. We're going to have Herbie Waters, who is going to continue the tradition of his grandfather and read that statement from Leonard Peltier. We're going to have Tailing Mora Taino from Boriken, Puerto Rico. And we're going to conclude this part of our action with the Red Nation and Demetrius Johnson. So with that, let's bring up Juan Gonzalez.
Reading the live stream? This is the live stream?
No, I appreciate you.
Maltios, to everyone here. As you noticed at the beginning, we were having a little bit of a hard time lighting a fire. And I want to thank you, each of you, for sending your good energy and help us light the fire. And at one moment, the presence of the Palestine people kind of created a fence around us, and that's when the fire started. So this means that each of us is needed to light the fire, and the fire is everywhere. You know that. So thank you for all of that. We must keep struggling, fighting, working, because our creation is in facing really serious dangers today. And I'm not just talking about United States, I'm talking about the whole planet, the whole Mother Earth. So if there is something that we take in our heart and in our minds today, is that to keep working together, fighting together, struggling together, but doesn't necessarily mean destruction, you know. We have too many examples of destruction all over. You know, the revolution in Cuba, the fall of apartheid, the revolution in Nicaragua, and look today now. Look, really open your eyes. It's just too many orphans, too many widows, too much blood. Why? Because the guys that have the power, doesn't matter if you call it left or right, you know, at the end of the day, they do the same, you know, oppress the people, oppress the people. So please open your eyes, and it's time to start destroying and changing those dreams of, you know, the revolution. The revolution is the solution. It's not. I know firsthand, you know, losing relatives, friends, family, it is a pain that never goes away. So let's take that with us today in our hearts and our minds. Let's keep working together, and there are many, many, many ways to do it. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the blessings of the sacred water that we need very much, because you know what? The water is the blood in our bodies, and we need that blood. So to end this moment, and I want to thank the New England, American Indians of New England for sharing this space. Masosoy vive, la lucha sigue. Masosoy vive, la lucha sigue. Red Cloud vive, la lucha sigue. Jerónimo vive, la lucha sigue. Crazy Horse vive, la lucha sigue. Sitting Bull vive, la lucha sigue. Cuauhtémoc vive, la lucha sigue. Zapata vive, la lucha sigue. Zapata vive, la lucha sigue. The Palestinians vive, la lucha sigue. Malteo Shahao.
Needs to go home, huh? Okay.
I don't think we did.
Okay. If you could just.
Do you mind holding the mic for 2 seconds? There you go.
No, you wanted it right. So.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Better.
All right. So again, this, well, first, we also want to just remind folks, we do have ASL interpreters, so we want to make sure we watch the way that we speak, so that we can be as accessible as possible. Thank you to our ASL interpreters. reflecting on the raindrops hitting the tarp, and it reminds me. I'm also an MLK visiting scholar at MIT's Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and this rainfall on the tarp reminds me of the encampment that we had across our campuses. The fight for liberation continues, yet our students are facing the criminalization of just exercising their First Amendment rights. So shame on all of those institutions. But what the students have created is so beautiful. And I want to say that as North American Indian Center of Boston, United American Indians of New England, we are part of the Boston Coalition for Palestine, with our dear relatives, inclusive of our dear relatives at the Palestinian House and the Palestinian Youth Movement. So with that, I'm going to bring up our next speaker, Leah Kayali.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! The rain is really welcoming us today, isn't it? My name is Leah Kayali, and I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. And I'm so honored to be here today on the day of mourning. Because as a Palestinian, every day for the last 419 days has been a day of mourning, knowing that the death toll is likely in the hundreds of thousands. So we are mourning with you today. Genocide, the unforgivable crime, has been wrought against so many of us indigenous folk. This is the bloodied history that colonizers tried to cover up with stories like Thanksgiving and Israeli independence. And today we reject those lies. Today, as a Palestinian, let me tell you our truth. This ongoing genocide is more than the heart-wrenching stories that you've heard. It is more than Hind Rajab's call for help, Rafat al-Harir's last poem, and Sha'ban al-Dalul's tent in fire. Genocide is the theft of all that is familiar. It is the grotesque and unnatural contortion of what we once called life. 20 kilograms of human remains in a plastic shopping bag. Bucking hamstrings of prisoners meant to stand naked for days on end without food. An ambulance shredded and left in the street like a meatball of entrails, mechanical. The low hum of drones swarming like autonomous hornets in your eardrums. Genocide is manufactured. It is the machinery of colonialism that makes a mockery of natural life. Zionism has produced an unrelenting mourning that will settle into our DNA for generations. But in this gathering, I am reminded it need not be that way. We deserve so much more than this capitalist Armageddon. Today, I feel in my body that I am surrounded by the folk who stare into this machinery of death and who extend a hand into the gears to hold ours as Palestinians. To say we have been here too, and we will only emerge together. My father always reminds me that we Palestinians can never make the mistake of thinking that we are the only peoples to endure and resist this mechanism of colonial oppression. For if we believe that we suffer alone, we will never rise together. So when I grieve the tens of thousands of children in Gaza who are orphans, I mourn the generations of native children who have been stolen from their homes. Because, to borrow from Nick Este's words, the theft of the young is the theft of the future. When I hear of the martyrs whose bodies are stolen by the cruel Zionist regime, my heart aches for every murdered and missing indigenous person. And when I weep for Walid Da'a, the now martyred Palestinian political prisoner, I know that with my tears I must demand freedom for Leonard Peltier. To be indigenous is to be held a space in the front lines of the fight for liberation. It is a space that is ours if we promise to commit to it, to study our history. Our Palestinian struggle against colonialism is a century old. We resisted first the British with the Great Peasant Revolt, the popular strikes and guerrilla attacks. Then we resisted the Zionists, expanding the mass character of our struggle and the tactics for over 76 years after. We Palestinians have tried all manner and forms of resistance, all legitimate and glorious genres of intifada, endeavors to shake off the shackles of colonialism. This is a resistance that is alive and well today. It is a resistance that tears down walls. It is a resistance that stops Merkava tanks in its tracks. It is a resistance that forces the occupier to retreat. Our diasporic Palestinian resistance is the focused work of targeting war profiteers like the shipping and logistics company Maersk that our organization is targeting. And just this month, we exposed their treachery and got Spain to reject 3 ships carrying military cargo for Israel. Our movement is creating chaos for one of the most profitable corporations in the world, and that is a crisis we will only escalate through our organizing. The youth in the Palestinian diaspora are stepping in to our legacy as indigenous resistors. It is a legacy that spans not only that century of Palestinian resistance, but the half millennia of indigenous resistance. And if ever I waver in my confidence of our path, I remember that we inherit the legacies of Lakota warriors, of Taino resistors, of Wampanoag champions. This summer, I connected with comrades from Hue Aloha Aina, and these Hawaiian organizers shared with me a chant in their struggle that passes on the message of a prophecy, an intifada where the masses will come together and strike at the heart of empire. And I don't know about you, but every day I feel closer to that revolution. Our indigeneity is a promise. It is an untouchable bond with our land. Zionists have demolished my family's home. They have stolen my cousins. They have appropriated our culture, but they cannot steal my relationship with my land. They cannot take away the texture of my hair under the Mediterranean sea breeze. They cannot rob the taste of olive oil from my lips. They cannot appropriate the way my grandmother makes sage tea to cure all evils. The indigenous freedom struggle is a long, middling road, but it has one destination: home. And as we traverse this long, middling road, we must choose every day to refuse despair. Because as Indigenous people, we, all of us, we know two things. First, that our indigeneity is our sacred and eternal inheritance of our relation with our lands. And second, that colonialism is the obstacle in our path to that prophecy. And so, my relatives here today, that leaves us with no choice but to end colonialism. This is not the decolonization of academic polemics, nor is it the decolonization of an NGO's mission statement, nor is it the decolonization of white people's veneer land acknowledgements. This is the decolonization of the Fedayeen, of the Zapatistas, of the American Indian movement. This is the decolonization that is threatening world order. Our decolonization is a global people's resistance that will not stop until the sunrise of freedom warms every inch of this earth from the long night of repression. So let them try. Let them try to steal our children, to push us from our homes, to repress our culture. They will fail because they are in our way. The future of collective freedom is our future of prophecy and our promise. Because nothing can stop this rising tide of resistance. Because the land knows her stewards, and we vow to her that we will return victorious. So when I say from Turtle Island to Palestine, you say land back. From Turtle Island to Palestine. Land back. From Turtle Island to Palestine. Land back. From Turtle Island to Palestine. Land back. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we're going to have our section on Leonard Peltier in just a minute. Fawaz, I want to call you to the stage. You had a quick couple of words about the Boston Coalition for Palestine. Also, Tailing Mora, if you're here, if you could just check into the blue tent that is behind me. So we're going to hear from Fawaz, and then Charlie, Nauru, and Herbie, just stand by.
How are we doing today? I stand here today, and for some feeling, a couple of years ago, I was in Ashkelon, which is my homeland, home city, and it just feels exactly the same, being among my people on occupied land. Many years ago, when I came to the United States, I met an indigenous friend, and I always made sure whatever I do is being approved and accepted and celebrated by my indigenous friends, and I went to many powwows and things like that for it. Something stuck to my head. A friend of ours, his grandmother, always talked about how people try to do things and be good, and to be good descendant for our good ancestors. And whenever we say something, she looked at us and she said, it is more important to be a good ancestor. So I'm going to make this fast and clear. No matter how good of a descendant you are today and always, please strive to become the good ancestor for generations to come. in solidarity for a free world, starting with a free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you to Fawaz. Now I'm going to call up Charlie Nato and Herb Waters, who are going to give us words introducing the longest serving political prisoner here in the United States, Leonard Peltier, and then the reading of the statement.
Hahom Janlu Daigwe di ituno kena dia tia ono diri Chalinaru Borikeng Taino Daka, United Confederation of Taino People, member of the Guainia Taino tribe. Taino Daka Kawai Daka, Kawai Daka, Kawai Daka. Good day, my brothers and sisters. My name is Chalinaru Done Saino Borikeng Taino. Borikeng, as you know it, colonized Puerto Rico. We like to still call it Borikeng. I am the Massachusetts Liaison Officer to the United Confederation of Taino People and a member of the Guainia Taino tribe, and I am so happy to be here once again to address this Leonard Peltier. Now I also want to say Nito Kakuhu, because we're all out here in the rain and this rain is cleansing. Nito Kakuhu, water is life. Water is life. Mini Wichoni. Nito Kakuhu, however you say it, water is life. I am here to explain Native political prisoner Leonard Peltier's case to you. After that, we will hear a statement directly from Leonard himself. Now, during this time, if you feel compelled, please, please, please go online and donate to his defense committee. It's freeleonardpeltiernow.org. So do it now, do it later, do it yesterday, but do it. Free Leonard Peltier, yes. Leonard Peltier is now 80 years old. For nearly 5 decades, indigenous activists, organizers, and allies have rallied behind the fight to free Leonard Peltier. Numerous constitutional violations took place throughout Leonard Peltier's trial, during which he experienced obvious racism. He has had ongoing health concerns, and his status as an elder is fragile. He should have been released years ago. It's hard to fathom and grasp how we're all once again in Plymouth for another year, advocating for his release at another National Day of Mourning. A member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe, Peltier is a political prisoner in a country that denies it has political prisoners. He has been incarcerated since his arrest in 1976. Leonard has dedicated his life to standing up for and defending Native people. After a shootout occurred on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in 1975, Leonard Peltier was framed up for the deaths of 2 FBI agents there. It has long been known that the prosecutors of his case engaged in misconduct, including the fact that the FBI concealed ballistics reports that showed Leonard's gun did not fire those shots. This miscarriage of justice is why there are prosecutors, including former U.S. Attorney James Reynolds, who have asked President Biden to free Leonard. Reynolds was the lead prosecuting attorney on Leonard's trial and appeal, and even he came to understand that the trial and conviction were unjust and racist. Leonard suffers from multiple medical conditions and has frequently experienced medical neglect in prison. He is now the longest surviving political prisoner in the entire United States. He didn't choose this martyrdom of his life. He was taken against his will and is incarcerated by a system that was built and created to destroy Native, Black, and Latino people. His freedom directly ties to indigenous demands for liberation. Peltier had a parole hearing last June after more than a decade since the previous hearing, and once again he was turned down by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. He is held at Coleman U.S. Penitentiary are an accurate reflection of how little respect and dignity the United States government has for Native people. He should have been paroled long ago. He should have been on a compassionate release long ago. Right now, we must continue to fight for him and push Joe Biden to right this wrong. And free Leonard Pell. Water is life.
Alright, for those who do not know, before 3 years ago, it was my grandfather, Dr. Herbert Waters Jr., who gave the statement that was sent to the Native Americans in New England by Leonard Peltier from prison. He'd been doing that for a while, and me, his grandson, is continuing that tradition right now. So I will begin reading Leonard Peltier's statement. Greetings, my relatives, friends, loved ones, and supporters. I am honored that you still hold me in your thoughts. Believe in me. With stolen lives and stolen labor. The King and Queen of Spain fell in love with our children and tried to end the slavery of American Indians. The colonizers used every loophole they could find. They did not want to give up the stolen labor of our people. They moved on to the stolen lives of our black brothers and sisters torn from their homelands. Our blood, our sweat, and our pain will forever bind us. The intent of the colonizers has always been total domination. When they could not control us, they killed us. They began with diseased blankets, Bibles, bullets, and lies they called treaties. Words are sacred. Our people know this, just as we know that Mother Earth herself lives and breathes through us. The words of the colonizers mean nothing, and their sacred pieces of paper mean less. Their 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty promised us an end to their wars against us and gave us the womb of Mother Earth, the Black Hills. They took our sacred land, and the genocidal fervor of the imperialists continues to this day. Their tactics have changed, but they want to see us annihilated as a people and steal what remains of our traditional land. Sitting Bull said, "Possessions are a disease with these people. They take, they ravish Mother Earth. It will never be enough because they are hollow. They have an insatiable thirst for possessions and vengeance. I ask myself why they hate us so. Perhaps they know we do not need possessions. Our spirit cannot be broken because we all are one. We are born of Mother Earth, woven with love, dignity, and a freedom they cannot comprehend. Though they have entombed me in concrete and steel, I am a free man. They rounded up our people and put us in concentration camps they call reservations. We remain a free people. The true shackles are those caging the souls of those who oppress us. Perhaps they know. Their pitiful attempts to crush us turn back on them and take their humanity. With every attempted conquest, they lose more of their spirit. Those who seek to oppress believe they are winning something. I ask them to open their eyes and look hard at what they think they have won. We will endure. They cannot take the sacred fire we carry. Do not let them take our children. They started with boarding schools. Now it is the insanity they call government. They want to govern us out of existence. Give your children tradition, education, artwork, something to turn to besides the disease of drugs and alcohol that infects our reservations. Prayer is action, my friends. Tell your children who we are with every word you speak and every move you make. We are the first people. Mother Earth births us, fires the blood that runs through our veins, and then takes us back into her womb. They can never take that from us. I've been warning for 5 decades now of the threat we face from the oppressors. Fascism has spread through those who have taken power and is staining the earth blood red. What I stated in 1982 stands true. The forces of liberation must and shall come together to fight as a united front in unity of the 4 colors. I am proud of my heritage. I take pride in our people. Even when they believe they have stripped us of everything, we know the ground beneath us is ours to stand on, holding the blood and bones of our ancestors. We are rich in tradition in a way the settlers cannot perceive. Perhaps they know. Perhaps they hate us because we exist within the forces of nature. They have no dominion over the wind. We must not alienate those who stand on the right side of history. We all bleed red. We must stand together in solidarity to defeat the forces that would see all of us in shackles. And I am still in prison. Again, I send my love and blood as a prisoner of war within the belly of the beast to those who continue the struggle. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, Daksha, Leonard Peltier. As aforementioned, for any more information about freeing Leonard Peltier and the cause, and the correct place to donate, kindly visit freeleonardpeltiernow.org. That is freeleonardpeltiernow.org. Free Leonard Peltier!
Great. I'm going to do one more call for titling Mora, please. If you can, just come check in with us at the blue tent behind the stage here. Next up, these folks in the Albuquerque-based Red Nation. They said the environment out there is pretty dry, and so coming out here and being in the rain is actually quite a dream for them. So if I can, Red Nation with Demetrius Johnson.
Baby. You can hold that, I'll hold it down.
Free, free, free Peltier!
Free, free, free Peltier!
24 is our year! Free, free, free Peltier!
Also, I apologize if I start to get emotional up here. To be standing up here when I know so many of my heroes have spoken up here, it's such an honor. Yate, Shidene do Shike, Demetrius Johnson da Shijene, Twitchini Nishle, Ado Sitna Jenny Bashishin, Sanjikina Ada Shache, Ado Twitchini Ada Chanele, Twitlana Den Nasha, Ado Akot Ego Dene. Nishle. Hello everyone, that was me introducing myself in Dene. I'm Twitachitni, Bitterwater, born for Black Streak Wood people. And I've been a member of the Red Nation for 10 years now. I want to thank my comrades in the Red Nation for making me sound cooler than I am, because we all collaboratively wrote this speech. Greetings, my relatives. We are honored to be back here representing the Red Nation on the 55th year of the National Day of Mourning. The Red Nation has had the honor of speaking on this platform before in 2017 and 2022. Thank you for inviting us back. The Red Nation is an Indigenous liberation organization, and this year is our 10-year anniversary. Our name is derived from a Lakota term, Oyate Luta, which means people who are made from the red clay of the earth, a Red Nation. Red also signifies our leftist political orientation. Red is a powerful color that represents courage and spiritual strength. Oyate Luta also represents unity. It doesn't imply people in the plural sense of many individuals. It implies people as in one people, one nation. My Lakota relative and comrade here, Levi, explained to us too. For Lakotas, red is the color of the north. North brings the cold, harsh winds of the winter season. These winds are cleansing. They cause the leaves to fall and the earth to rest under a blanket of snow. If someone has the ability to face these winds, like the buffalo with its head into the storm, they have learned patience and endurance. Generally, this direction stands for hardships and discomfort. Therefore, north represents the trials people must endure and the cleansing they must undergo. In the early days, we rose to combat border town violence and the sinister ways it manifests on our lands. Border towns are settlements that encompass our reservations, where indigenous people routinely face discrimination from settler and settler-owned businesses, sleep unsheltered on stolen land, and have to fight for our right to simply exist. In 2014, our beloved relatives Allison Gorman and Key Thompson, also known as Cowboy and Rabbit, were brutally murdered by settlers while they slept. The only rationale that we can use to understand this senseless violence is the same rationale that has been used by settler colonies to justify their countless crimes against our people. An ideology which persists throughout this crumbling empire, that merely existing as an indigenous person within settler-occupied territory is deemed a crime worthy of death. We rejected this racist ideology back then. We took the streets to demand justice. We called on our relatives. We spoke out, and from that point on, our mission has sought to center justice and dignity for all indigenous people of this earth. We are indigenous feminists, internationalists, revolutionary socialists, and anti-imperialists. That is why we are here at this 55th National Day of Mourning, because those who were there in 1970 laid the liberatory groundwork for people like us, like you and your children, to show up to demand, witness, and speak truth. In the last year, we have seen how the settler colonial states manifest themselves. We have seen how mainstream media is used by the settler states to justify, perpetuate, then make invisible, yet again, a genocide in Palestine without consequence. We have seen how the truth is suppressed and how journalists are slaughtered by the dozens. Even they realize that the truth is our greatest weapon. Our power lies in our words. That is why this day is so important. The National Day of Mourning embodies an indigenous counter-narrative that dissolves settler lies. Today, like tongues, like sharpened like iron, we will cut open colonialism and expose its rotten core. On November 4th, 2023, the Red Nation traveled to Washington, D.C. for the first National March for Palestine, and it is here that we proclaimed, we know the entire history and future of Palestine because we have lived it. We endure the settler colonial project that calls itself the United States. We survived the elimination and removal of our ancestors. We are in our 5th century of resistance, and we know that Palestine's future is a certain future because we are still here. Wampanoag people are still here. And it is here that we shall still remain. In these dark times of great suffering, where it is difficult to keep despair at bay, we remind our relatives that colonialism is falling, crumbling under the weight of its own conceit. The fort is breached, and the wagons are burning. The end of colonialism nears because the end of a colonialism is inevitable. The United States wages endless wars to maintain its position as a supreme settler colony of the world. Ours is the oldest struggle against U.S. colonialism. Now is the chance to redeem your humanity, settlers of our stolen lands, by standing with the indigenous people of the world. The end of U.S. imperialism is the only solution for us, for Palestine, and for the world. The humble people of the earth have spoken. There is no place for colonialism on Mother Earth. For the earth to live, colonialism must die. A free Palestine frees us all to build a future of peace and equality. Today, we join our Palestinian relatives in a righteous struggle to author a new society. To our relatives in Gaza, we say, K'eh beh nihdzith, which means, together we are strong. May our message carry far across the sea. Gaza, Gaza, you will see. Palestine will truly be free. Today, we deliver a devastating blow to colonialism. As indigenous people of Turtle Island, we proclaim that decolonization and land back are the only forms of justice for the crimes of settler colonialism. Today, as we stand together in solidarity, we affirm that the fight for indigenous liberation is far from over. It is our collective responsibility to resist erasure, to amplify indigenous voices, and to ensure that the future generations inherit a world where dignity, sovereignty, and justice are realities, not dreams. We leave here not just with grief, but with determination. As indigenous peoples, we know that our ancestors survived centuries of violence so that we could be here today. Their strength lives in us, and their fight continues through us. Together, let us carry this message of resistance and solidarity forward for the Wampanoag people, for indigenous nations across Turtle Island, for Palestine, and for all oppressed peoples fighting for liberation. We will never give up, and we will never back down until liberation for all. And so I know we're supposed to march after this, but just a real quick plug, follow Red Nation on social media, but also please join us in a I'd like to lead a chant of sorts. So repeat after me. From Plymouth Rock to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. From Plymouth Rock to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Yeah.
So we are just about to line up. The order is our prayer keepers, Rosalba and Juan Gonzalez. Then we are going to have the banner and all of our invited speakers. We would invite you to be at the front banner. After that, we're going to have all of our indigenous peoples behind the banner. And then we're also going to have the truck behind the banner.
I was like sitting in front of that, like
Hello.
Hello. My name's Jeremiah, by the way.
Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Cole.
Me too, cool. Luna, Market.
And dispossession. It is often misunderstood how generative, how bountiful refusal is. But it is through acts of refusal that we are able to honor our ancestors, gather in solidarity, and engage in a collective assertion of indigenous life and indigenous futures. Most of them there not because they chose to join a protest movement, but because they have conscripted by capitalism, by colonialist violence, and the legislative coup. While their deaths are differently reported and categorized, we know that all of them were land defenders. By the colonial state repression. Such tactics are not unique to Peru. As we anticipate another transfer of state power in 2026, I know that many of you rightfully fear what lies ahead. But as you stand yourselves, plan and organize for countermeasures, I encourage you and all of us to build transnational solidarity. Many around the world have lived plutocrats and authoritarians. At the same time, it is indigenous peoples who are made criminals. Recently, 11 indigenous leaders were sentenced to 9 years in prison for protesting the Las Bambas persist. Just as the Wampanoag have persisted here in active refusal since 1620, the Palestinians since the 1967 Nakba, and the peoples in Sudan, Haiti, Congo persist. It is in our honor of these peoples and ancestors that we must continue to come out, show up, and join in this collective show of